Hello. Yashasvi, can I start?
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, there was a lot of noise coming out from. I just sort of closed the door.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Abhishek Jain. I'm pleased to invite you all to a very special episode by Plant on securing a judicial clerkship. Please note that towards the end of the session, we will also be having a Q&A session for which I will request you all to put your questions in the live chat box on YouTube. We have with us today Yashasvi Jain, who graduated from National University of Study and Research in Law of Ranchi in 2019 and then went on to serve as a legal clerk cum research assistant to the Honorable Justice UU Lalit in 2019. She currently works as an associate at the office of the Honorable Justice D.K. Jain, who is a former judge of the Supreme Court of India. In this session, Yashasvi will be speaking in detail about judicial clerkships. I would now want to hand it over to her to start the session.
Thank you, Abhishek. To begin with the session, I've been specifically told to address everything related to judicial clerkship. So before I begin, I'd like to clarify that I'll be dealing with both judicial clerkships at the Supreme Court level and how it's dealt with even at the high courts, at different high courts. So to begin with, I think the first and the foremost question that always pops up even in my chat messages or anybody that I come across is that who should be ideally applying for clerkship. So basically, anybody with a law degree at any point in their career, at any point in their professional career, can apply for judicial clerkship. So the minimum requirement is that you need to be a law graduate. Also, there are a lot of times when people say at what point in their career should they apply for clerkship. Like most of the students that I come across, they ask whether they should right after graduation go for clerkship or if they take up some other job in a firm or litigation chamber, and if they then plan to go for clerkship, is it too late or what is it? So the best thing about clerkship is that you can do it at any point. I have had colleagues who have come after serving 1 year in a litigation chamber. I've had people who are wanting to become a law clerk after spending 2 years in a law firm. So the area is absolutely free of any sort of, it does not have any restrictions per se, if I would like to put it that way. And anybody with a law degree, like I said, and obviously who wants to, in their career, take clerkship as a medium to, get that experience, which might help them in their future prospect. So having a judicial clerkship has its own benefits. But before I get onto that, it's equally important as to be able to decide, when should one apply. So ideally, the process of applying for clerkship is quite a tedious one. I wouldn't lie about it. So you have to be really on your toes to be thorough with the process of judicial clerkship. So the thing is that every high court in India, at least, has its own procedure. They have their notifications on their websites, on their official website, and every high court has laid down certain criteria. So some hold written examination followed by an interview, and thereby you're chosen to be a law clerk to a specific judge. Somewhere it's just a direct interview with the judges. In the Supreme Court, it's via the Supreme Court website says that it has a written examination, which majorly comprises of English, general knowledge, some legal reasoning, and if you qualify in that, you have an interview round, which is then which in which if you shortlist for the clerks that have to be attached to certain offices of the judges, your CVs are shortlisted and sent out. They're compiled together with other candidates, and they're sent out to the offices of the judges. However, in the Supreme Court, at least, I will be quite specific to that since I have experiences that way. In Supreme Court, at least, that is not the only way to get a judicial clerkship. So there are a few other ways where without appearing for the examination also, but I would still say that appearing for the examination is the most secure way of getting a clerkship. However, there are a few times, like I think for this year, for example, the Supreme Court has not conducted the judicial clerkship examination, and hence I think I was getting a lot of queries in that regard also. Whether if the Supreme Court has not conducted the examination, how is one supposed to pursue? So there are a number of ways where one can go forward, and this goes very similar to other job opportunities that one tries to seek. So for example, if you're in a college and you have a plan in future that after graduating you want to be clerking under a judge. So as per my experience and as I have done in my career also, it's better to intern with a judge first. So I interned with Justice Chelameshwar in my fourth year, and that was the only way I could actually decide for myself whether this is something that I want to do, or this is not something that that will help me in future. So when you work with a judge, you come across the expectations, you come across the work culture, you meet the law clerks there, you also interact with the judge, you see how what are the work hours, what are your duties essentially. So you're able to decide for yourself, and it's only beneficial if you plan to take up judicial clerkship in future. So that is one way, that you intern with a judge first, and if you like it, I would that is one very I would say very it's one of the ways which is very much used by students. So what they do is they intern once, they like it, they like the work, they obviously impress the judges with their work, and they intern there again and again, maybe once or twice, to be able to talk to the judge personally and secure a clerkship for themselves. So that is one very secure way of getting clerkship, other than obviously going by the formal procedure of what Supreme Court has. But that is a very time-taking process. The examination happens, then the interview happens, then you will have to wait and see if there is any vacancy in the respective judge's office, and it's a process which obviously takes time, and you'll have to wait, and sometimes it's always sometimes it's quite uncertain also. So it's better if you intern with a judge, you make contacts, you build contacts. As much as we like to believe it or not, this industry works on contacts, so it's better to build contacts. So this happened with me also. I interned with Justice Chelameshwar, and I really became close to the law clerks and the personal secretary to the judge. So I obviously kept in touch, and I told them that I intend to law clerk in future. So if they come across any vacancy in future, because the year I was interning with Justice Chelameshwar, he was also retiring, so I could not possibly take it further. But this is one of the ways. The other way is the third way, apart from the exam and interning. The third way is that you get hold of law clerks, get out the email IDs of respective offices of the judges. So this is one another way where every judge has his chamber at his residence, where his staff, his personal secretaries manage his offices. So you directly email them for an internship or for a clerkship, and accordingly, if there is a vacancy both for internship and clerkship, they might call you. But this is again a very time taking process, so you have to consistently apply. That is the key. You have to apply. There is no other way out. You might not get replies because obviously the offices of the judges are really busy, and they have a lot of other things, more important things to be done. But it's extremely important for you, and it's on your part to get hold of their email IDs, try building contacts, get out the email ID, get out the phone numbers, whatever you can, and press and apply and keep calling them. And ideally, I would suggest that one should apply at least a year before they intend to intern with a judge at least. And if possible, one should intern for maybe like 2 months, so that you are also able to it's one I personally feel 1 month is a very small time to intern with a judge, for a simple reason. Because if you're working on a matter and you've prepared a very good note, you've researched on it, there might be chances that it gets adjourned, or it gets pushed to another 4 weeks or so. But at least you should be able to follow up with at least one matter that you worked during the internship. So yes, it's obviously very unexpected when that matter would come up, but it's always advisable to at least intern for 2 months. And if the office obviously has vacancy, that too. So that is why apply at least an year in advance. And rigorous applications has to be sent, otherwise there is a very bleak chance of the personal secretaries having paying attention to your applications. So that is one way. So basically, there are three ways for applying for a clerkship. One would be the examination, as I've said. The examination, as I've said, primarily comprises of GK and English and logical reasoning. It's a very general paper, so you don't need to take. People ask me if they need to take coaching for it. I don't think that that's actually necessary. If you've been preparing for CLAD and you've studied in college also, so it's absolutely basic. Other than that, yes, you should brush up your legal knowledge over the time, the legal developments that have come across. And specifically when you're interviewing with a judge, it's important that you read up his judgments, his famous landmark judgments that have been out there, and anything that is related to what he has worked upon. So obviously it shows that you've well researched, you are confident, and about that judge also. So it makes an impression. And with the judge, it's not going to be he'll ask you what section is what, and what provision is what. He's just generally going to be looking forward to what your plans in the future are, how clerkship is going to be, it will be helpful for you for future. So you just have to be confident in that regard. And uh, I think that's pretty much how one should apply for clerkship. Other than that, when to apply is, again, like I said, at least a year in advance if you're applying by applications for internship. If you're applying for clerkship, I would still suggest that at least 6 months or so you should apply in advance, because what happens in clerkship is that it's not that it will start from April and it will end in March. Usually it's a 1 year contract, but there are a lot of clerks who try to get it extended for more than a year. So in that case, it's not necessary that every year a vacancy will arise in an office. So you have to keep it. So you obviously, by sitting outside, you can't keep a tab as to in which office how many vacancies are present. So it's better to apply at least 6 months in advance to at least get to know as to if there is, in future, if there's going to be a vacancy or not, if you get in touch with the person secretaries. So that is one ideal way to one ideal time to apply for clerkship would be at least 6 months or a year in advance. How to apply? I've clearly mentioned it. There are the three ways, and in high courts also, I think one needs to write an application to the registrar if there is no examination per se given out by a notification. So one needs to write to the registrar of the high court. You take out your CV, you write a cover letter, and you express your interest for you express your interest for the position of a law clerk, and then the registrar usually takes up a few applications that he received, and then he passes on to the offices which has vacancies. So in that case, it's totally upon the discretion of the judge as to who he wants to call upon for interview, or who he wants to keep, how many he wants to keep. It's absolutely his discretion. So that is exactly why I said it's a time taking process, and one needs to really follow up on that. Other than that, what does what work experience, or what work experience, as in for a clerkship, does somebody need primarily as prior to coming for a clerkship? There is no such primary work experience that is required. Like I said, anybody straight out of law school can also apply, and anybody who's been practicing for 2 years in a law firm, or who's been working in a think tank, or somebody who's working in a litigation chamber can absolutely apply. As long as you think you have good research skills, you are inclined to you're inclined to work for 12 to 14 hours in a day, and I think you're probably the best to apply. So the one very important thing is that, unlike other government offices where you have these government holidays and you have Saturday Sundays off, a clerkship works as according to a judge. So whoever, every office, office, example, if you're working with so and so judge, or if you're working with any other judge, everybody has their own terms and conditions of working. So whatever work hours your respective judges say, you'll have to work for that much. If Sunday is off or Sunday is not off, or you have a government holiday, it all depends on the respective judges. So basically, you are there to assist him in any administrative come judicial work that he has, and your primary job would be to be there when he wants you for, be it research note, be it case laws, be it proofreading, be it writing his speeches. He could be asked. You should be able to assist him at any point of time, and for anything that he requires. So the work profile, like I said, it's primarily research based. You need to be really really good with your research. Secondly, the best part that I feel about clerkship is that one gets enough time to research on a particular issue, or a particular provision that is given to you to research on. So it's not. I'm sure, like now I'm working in a chamber, so I see that everybody has deadlines. You have a matter coming up tomorrow, so you have to research on it in 2 hours, 3 hours, and be done with it. As it is, as opposed to that, in a judge's chamber, you're given enough time to sit on it, to read. You have resources available at your disposal. You have judges library, so anything you want with regard to literature, with regard to resources, with regard to uh, any research, in form of any research books, it's absolutely available to you. So anybody who's looking to get into research at depth, so this is something absolutely perfect for you. Also, you're given enough, like I said, you're given enough time to research on a particular topic issue, and it's just not that you have to look at legally. A judges expect you to have a very holistic approach towards it. He would ask you to go and look for the parliamentary debates over it, how the provision was brought, why was the provision amended at any point if it was amended, what is the purpose of bringing that provision. So it goes into extreme depth. The research goes into extreme depth, and that is the best part that I feel about clerkship work. So obviously, finding case laws, making case notes. I think I have made so many case notes during my tenure as a clerk, as a law clerk, that even now it helps me. So making not just case laws, having big files, having very voluminous files, and be able to make out a case note out of it within maybe like 1 or 2 days is it's absolutely, you feel confident after you've been able to do it. Other than research, yes, you have to make case notes about every matter that is listed for the next day. So we have around 40 to 50 matters listed in court every day, and specifically on Monday and Friday, which is a miscellaneous day. So that is a really something, like where I started with it. I used to find it quite difficult to be able to get through such voluminous files and be able to make one page a note of it. But it is just out of practice. So I think probably in a span of 1 year, I must have made notes on over 300, 400 files. And after once you get a hold of it's a matter of few minutes for you to make a note. But this all comes from practice. So it might you might struggle before, but that's precisely why I say that one should intern, and one should get a feel of how the office functions, what are the duties it entails for you. And yes, that's pretty much what the work is like. Other than that, there's about who should be actually looking forward to clerkship is one very pertinent question that often people have. So with regard to that, there is a very wrong notion that people who are only looking forward for masters in abroad should be applying for clerkship. I've had, like I said before, I've had colleagues who have left law firms and got into clerkship, who have, after doing their clerkship, they have joined some policy think tanks. They have gone for litigation. They have not gone for masters. Uh, they have even some have even started their own small startups with which provides legal access to legal aid to people. So the options are endless, and it's an open ended, the entire job of judicial clerkship is very open ended. So it does not restrict you to a particular job profile. You can litigate, you can go for judiciary. People have cracked judiciary while working as a judicial clerk, because obviously you don't have a best professor other than your judge yourself. So it's important that you have it figured out for yourself as to how judicial clerkship will be helpful for you. If you want to litigate, if you want to work in a law firm, it's absolutely open ended for everybody. And it's not that one needs to go for masters compulsorily, which is a very popular, yet I won't say it's a wrong notion, but it's a very popular yet misleading notion that everybody who wants to go for masters abroad should go for clerkship. Uh, Rather, if you want to litigate and you want to join a litigation chamber, nothing is better than a judicial clerkship, for a simple reason that when you're clerking and when you're going to court every day, you see lawyers arguing before you. You read their written submissions, you read their arguments, you see them arguing the same. You, on a very prima facie basis, you get to see what is being put forth by the lawyers and what is the court craft being put forth, and it's very helpful as and when you want to go up there and practice. So just sitting on that chair and listening to the listening to the advocates makes yourself, you yourself feel that you should be out there arguing. So it gives you that motivation time and again. And other than that, people have joined policy think tanks, like I told you, because when you research, you go into such depth that you have to see as to, if there is a law, why is it the way it is. So that is what even policy think tanks do. So, and recommend as to what is the way out if such a law exists in our country. So the field is vast. You can approach it the way you want to. You can either use it to your benefit, or you can just let it go. There has been a very wrong notion recently, that people just go for clerkship for the sake of it, for the name of it, that you're working with the Supreme Court judge. But on the contrary, one should not look it that way, and one should really be able to utilize whatever takeaways they can, from whatever takeaways they can get out of that clerkship. And one more thing that I would add to this is, one should interact as much as possible while interning or while clerking with the judge, and one should interact as much as possible. Just go to him. Like, I was quite lucky in that case, because Justice Lalit was a really kind and patient person, and his doors were always open to us. So even if we want to discuss a case, we want to discuss what happened in the court today, he would always be up for it, and he would always tell us his point of view as to how he would judge the behavior of the lawyer who was arguing, or anything. So it's always good to have a chat with your judge, and it's always advisable to also build a rapport with your judge. Other than that, what opportunities and skills are required upon completion of the clerkship? Like I said, if I if I would say it for myself, 1 year back when I just started clerkship, I was straight out of college, and I was good at research. I thought that I could make good notes, but the way you hone your skills is something that I've seen, and the way you progress is something you'll notice it for yourself. So your research skills get drastically improved. Number one. Number two, you are able to brief. You are able to brief on a case matter more coherently, more precisely, more accurately as to what is needed. You know what is to be what is needed, that is to be told, what can be ignored. You get that eye for the things. Uh, Other than that, the experience is absolutely wholesome. You, as a personality, as a lawyer, you start to see things on a very broad aspect. You don't just see that, uh, this is the argument, and I think this is going that way, or this is going that way. It shouldn't be going that way. One should it gives a very holistic approach. It builds a very holistic approach within yourself. So even after my clerkship, now I get a file. I go into the depth of it, because that's how 1 year of training with a judge trains you. You have to, you automatically start seeing what laws are and how they're connected to each other, or if there's a party who has a contention with regard to a specific law, why is it like that. So one gets a very overall, I would say, perspective over matter. And I think more or less that's it. Other than that, any if I want to give any tip to students who wish to apply and who wish to pursue clerkship, it would be that, don't be so don't be so certain about how your future is going to unfold, or don't be so fixed with your plan in future. Just try to experiment, see what works for you. Don't stick to that you want to work in a law firm, so you just straight away go and join a law firm. You always have a law firm to join. You can always work at the litigation chamber, and at the end of the day, you're going to be doing that. So it's only at the initial years of your career that you can experiment, you can see what works for you. Anyway, clerkship is a very short term contractual employment. It's not a very long term opportunity. So one should use it to the best, as it would as in any way it would help them in future. So my advice would honestly be that anybody who's planning to go for clerkship should plan it accordingly, as in, if you want to straightly go out of college, or if you're getting a really good opportunity right after your college to join a law firm or to join a litigation chamber, you should not leave it. Go for it, go ahead with it, try working with it for 1 year 2 year. Maybe you realize that that's not something that you're meant to do. Switch to clerkship. You'll see a very different work environment, you'll see a very different way of working. The way lawyers work and the way judges work, it's absolutely contrasting. So you cannot compare these two personalities working. So judges have a very they work, they'll sometimes just leave the matters to you. They know how they want to proceed with the matter, but sometimes they'll just give you the file and they'll ask for your opinion. What should be done in this matter, ideally, according to you. Go through the laws, see where the merit in the argument lies. But that gives you a space to think, that gives you an environment where you can develop your legal mind. It's not something, because as I have seen in a chamber and as I have seen in a law firm, it prior to before you start working on a file. It that you have to progress in this direction, you have to build an argument around this, otherwise you'll lose the case. But in a chamber with a judge, you are at your free will to discuss with, of course, with the judge, as to how it should be or how it should not be according to you. And if there is a particular way it is being proceeded, why is it the way it is being proceeded and why not the other way? So these are some very challenging and intellectually stimulating questions that one naturally comes across in the initial point in career. So I think one should not let go of it. This is one opportunity everybody should take up, either at the Supreme Court or at the High Court. And one more thing that I would mention is that I came across one of the posts on LinkedIn or somewhere where somebody had written that when you're approaching for clerkship, you should be sure as to which judge you want to work under, as in, be it a criminal, be it a civil, or which side, original side, appellate side. Yes, while working in a high court, I wouldn't disagree with it completely, that you should be, you could have your options. But when you're working with a judge, I don't think these things should really come to your mind, because the ambit of work that they have, the variety of matters that they have, it will itself leave you with so much awe that you won't feel that, I have interest in criminal and I really, really only want to do criminal. And I don't think one should even limit themselves at such early point in career, that I only want to do criminal matters, or I only want to do uh, um, civil matters. So even in my case, I graduated with criminal honors, and I chose Justice I did not choose Justice Lalit, but rather Justice Lalit chose me. But I was very happy that somewhere he being a master in criminal laws, and I'll be able to discuss things with him. But more so that I worked with him, I even developed an interest in arbitration. And it was because there was such wide ambit of matter. I developed interest in matrimonial disputes as well. So while you're working on, until unless you come across matters which are diverse, you won't realize your interest in it. It's very different from what subjects you study in law school, and if they derive your interest or not. It's extremely difficult to make you realize what your actual interest lies. But you have to work upon a matter to realize, and you have to work on several matters on a similar area, so that you can realize, this is something I might want to do. And it was only after I realized that, I have some interest in arbitration, and I thereby joined an office of an arbitrator. So I would say have a plan, but don't be very adamant over it, and don't have a very concrete plan. Let it be flexible, let it be fluid. Let just go with the flow. You know how clerkship changes you, and how your interest changes over a period of time, and then decide for yourself as to what you want to pursue. So more or less, that is something that I would say on judicial clerkship. If there's anything else, Abhishek, you can please let me know.
Hello. So I think that session was very, very detailed actually. So I think most of the questions have actually been covered. I think just a couple of things that are more like just myths that a lot of us have when we are considering to apply for a clerkship. So I think one of the most basic things is whether we should look at it as more of a work experience or more of a training exercise where we're actually getting some kind of training and it's more of a teaching learning process with the judge, or is it more like a work environment more towards the sides of just an employment with a judge?
I think that's another very pertinent question. So I would, as per my experience, I would say it's 50-50. You get to learn so much under a judge, and when I was straight out of college, I was quite new. I was quite new, and I did not know how to deal with such voluminous matters, and how I am supposed to give my opinion over a matter, whether my opinion will be right or wrong. So in that case, I would really say it's a learning process. One actually learns how to apply their mind, like I said. On the other hand, the work ethic is extremely high, the commitment level is extremely high. So you need to be extremely committed to your work, and like I said, you need to put in a lot of hours. You can't be just expecting it to work for 6 hours or 8 hours, or just pushing the work because there's a lot of time to it. So the commitment in the work ethic environment is very high. So in terms of that, you yourself get trained as to how much work are you supposed to put into, or what is expected out of you professionally also. And even if you're there to learn, even if you're at such a new stage in your career that you're supposed to make mistakes. Judges will often, you'll often see them pointing out a mistake. You've not done such thing, or if you found such a judgment, this does not uh, apply, or it's not applicable in entirety. So you see yourself doing mistakes, you learn, you grow, and at the same time you get to learn also how to work in an extremely high ethically motivated, and professionally motivated environment. So take it as a both. That would be my word. Take it as a both. And also, I like to add one thing to this. A lot of times, if you are clerking, and thereafter you apply for a law firm or you apply to a chamber, they wouldn't really count your experience, or sometimes they would. So ideally what happens is, because you are as a law clerk, you are not practicing as an advocate. You're not allowed to take up your own cases, you're not allowed to practice in any of the courts. So a lot of times, the law firms or the litigation chambers will still consider you as a fresher, but it should not be as a disadvantage, for a simple reason that you are not completely a fresher in terms of how many years you've graduated. You have learned a lot during your clerkship, and that is upon you to show them as to how what you've learned is going to be useful for their field, whichever field they work in. So it is upon you. And a lot of times, even in law firms, a lot of partners do take into consideration your clerkship as a 1 year PQE, but in a lot of other ways, sometimes they do not. But it solely depends on the person to person as to how they're able to convince, as to if they've spent 1 year doing clerkship or 2 years doing clerkship, how it has benefited them, and how it's going to ultimately benefit the person hiring you. So it's give and take, I would say.
All right, I think that was a very interesting answer. So I think my next question is actually very specific to the application process itself. So interestingly, over here, I mean, if I've understood it understood correctly, there's only two steps. There's a test and then there's also an interview. So there isn't a specific requirement for a student to actually come in and give like a CV or a resume. So does your overall profile at law school, or essentially your life pre the application process, actually come in your interview or in any other such stage?
Absolutely, absolutely. That goes without saying, because whatever you've done over the course of your 5 years in law school, it reflects how active you were in law school, or how intellectually, you're motivated to take things further. It does not entail that you have to do specific kind of moods, or you have to write certain kind of research paper. As long as your CV reflects that you've been active in your law school, you've been taking projects, you've been responsible for quite a few papers that you've written, or you've been doing well in your modes. It just has to showcase that you've not just wasted your 5 years, and you've been investing your time into anything of your life. You could be taking up legal aid, you could be taking up I would say research papers, or moods, or parliamentary debates, anything that interests you. It does not have any fixed criteria that one should have research papers, or one should have moods, or one should have a gold medal, one should have an 8 CGPA. Absolutely, absolutely not. So one should just be a sincere student, and one should be able to showcase that what he has done in law school in 5 years is something that is going to, obviously he's going to take it further with him. So I think more or less one CV should be exhaustive with in everything that he has done in 5 years of law school, and just leave it to the judge. Every judge has his own way of seeing a CV. Somebody might get attracted to something, and somebody might get attracted to something else. Somebody might just see your internships, that where all you've interned, what all work areas you've covered there. So just have a, I would say, just have a very once when one says like you should have an overall development in college, that's what should reflect in your CV. That's all.
All right. I mean, I guess again, that was a very detailed answer. I think just before we end the session, would you just want to give any general tips for a law student who's preparing for the exam? I know you covered this in brief, but like in general, if anyone is starting their preparation in fifth year, how much time should they put on it, and how should they probably go ahead with it? And also, are there any general tips that you would want to give for a student who's trying to prepare for the interview round? Just anything from your experience.
Yeah. So specifically for the examination, the I personally believe the English section is the toughest. So you need to really pick up the dictionary and work on your vocabulary. The English that they expect you to is quite top notch. So just pick up dictionary, learn words, try to use them as much as possible. Other than that, is GK. It's pretty obvious. Read newspapers, be aware of what's happening around you. Also, just go through the recent judgments that have come across in news, which have some prominent effect, and which have been passed in the recent 1 or 2 years. Be updated with those judgments. And other than that, the legal section of the paper majorly includes questions from the constitutional law, contracts, CPC. So nothing in particular with it's all very general that you've learned throughout your college. You won't necessarily get questions from very specific subjects like environment law or IPR. You will get a very general questions on, like I said, Indian Evidence Act, some CRPC, some CPC. So the major subjects, just brush up your knowledge on that. And as far as the interview is concerned, like I said again, you have to be, number one rule is you have to be really confident in front of the judge. So you are supposed to be, the judge is looking forward to a person who can, very well converse, who is able to put forth what he's thinking. If you hold yourself back, and if you're not putting out what you're thinking, a judge might be a little reluctant to take you, because he wants somebody who he can discuss things with at his office, what has happened in court, like I said, and about the judgments that he wants to write. So you need to be really open about it. You need to be interactive with the judge. You need to be confident. Yes, brush up on your basic legal knowledge, brush up on the current affairs that's happening, legal current affairs specifically. More or less, That's pretty much how every interview goes. So I don't think you need to specifically be preparing for it. And yes, if you're preparing for the examination, just put in like 6 months or so to revise whatever you've learned throughout the 5 years, and that pretty much suffices.
All right. Thank you for that, Yashasvi. I think that brings us to the end of the session. I think it was a very informative session for those of us who are really looking forward to this, and also for students who might actually now plan to consider this as a possible option post law school. So, thanks a lot for actually taking out the time and coming and conducting this session. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of Team Plant once again.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.